Focus with FAR, a discussion of national issues that matter to the Central Coast, with 20th District Congressman Sam Farr.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Focus with FAR. Tourism is an important part of the Central Coast economy. Visitors travel from all parts of the globe in hopes of seeing, say, whale watchers swimming in Monterey Bay or a condor soaring above the High Pinnacles National Park. Visitors want to play at our famous golf courses, dine at our fine restaurants, or stay at our world-class hotels. Somebody has to help visitors to the Central Coast. They have to help them get around, to see all those wonderful sights, to explain the important connection between tourism and transportation. Is the Executive Director of the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, Debbie Hale, and the General Manager and CEO of the Monterey Salinas Transit, Carl Sidorik. So, Debbie and Carl, you have these two roles in transportation. Everybody knows you're kind of local figures, but I don't think they know the difference between what you do in the transportation planning and what you do in operating the transit system. So could you just explain what your role is and how it relates to Carl's?
Sure. Thank you, Congressman Farr. Well, the Transportation Agency for Monterey County, we like to say that we plan, fund, and in some cases help deliver regional transportation services in Monterey County. So we are designated by the state as a regional transportation planning agency.
And each of the other counties I represent, Santa Cruz County and San Benito County, have the same kind of organizations?
They do. Most of these planning agencies are on a county-wide basis. And so we receive different formula funds from the state and sometimes from the federal government. And then we use our plans to help distribute money to the cities, the county. Sometimes we directly work with Caltrans on projects. Sometimes we work with the state of California, say on extending rail service. And we also play an oversight role for a lot of the transit money that then goes to Monterey Salinas Transit.
And you also have responsibility over some of the trail systems as well?
We do. We work on multimodal network of systems, and really our role is to help provide those connections between all of the different jurisdictions, the cities and the county, because people don't know when they're passing a city boundary. They just know they're on Highway 1 or the rec trail, and those all generally cross a lot of different boundaries. So our membership is all 5 county supervisors and all 12 cities, so we have a good political representation.
Carl, I got my start in bus riding when I was a kid in Carmel. I would go to the end of my block with my little fishing pole and my gunny sack, and I would take the bus for 25 cents from Carmel over to the wharf in Monterey and fish all day and rub all the fish guts and everything all over my pants and get back on the bus and watch everybody move. And I'd get home and my mother would say, I'm not letting you in the house until you clean all those fish, and after you clean all the fish, you have to take off all your clothes. But that bus ride was just my freedom, a way of sort of running away from home for the day. In those days, nobody cared. I mean, you go to Carmel and Monterey all by yourself and spend the day on the wharf, and parents didn't worry because you'd come back. But that system is just, I've always loved it. When I was on the Board of Supervisors and we had the energy crisis during Carter years, I used to commute from Carmel all the way to Salinas. It's a little bit longer route and having to shop. You've done so many things to improve the surface transportation system, and why I really want to have you on this program is that I think that everybody, both of you, I think everybody knows that our Central Coast is sort of what I call an in and out economy. I mean, we're getting tourists in and we're trying to get fresh produce out. And if you think about it, it's all surface transportation. There isn't airlines doing this. There isn't shipping, boat shipping lines. They depend on the roads, and the roads are just jammed. And the only way we can get sort of people out of the car, out of that single driver, and is to really create some alternative attractions through public transit. You've done a lot of interesting things, and why don't you tell me and listening audience here about some of the specialty routes that you've created?
Well, yes, thank you, and a great story, a great lead-in about how public transportation provides mobility for young people, old people, tourists, and residents to get where they need to go, whether it's fishing or whether it's to school or to work. And different than TAMC. MST is actually responsible for the delivery of public transportation services. We take the funding that TAMC allocates to us, match that with other sources of money from federal sources, state sources, and provide the actual transportation services, which includes a wide variety of unique services that we provide for our tourists in Monterey County.
Aren't some of your services free too?
Well, they're free to the passenger. Through our partnerships, innovative partnerships with the Monterey Bay Aquarium and the City of Monterey.
So they underwrite the bus service?
Absolutely.
And then you put a dedicated, unique bus for getting to the aquarium, getting around.
Correct. Our very popular MST Trolley operates during the summertime, and now during the off-season, through the generosity of the City of Monterey, we are now operating weekend service with the MST Trolley for visitors and residents alike. And
I recommend to friends that come visit, if they want to go to the aquarium, to really park their car in downtown Monterey in one of the garages there, and then walk over to your site there, because not only is it convenient, but that trolley itself is a tourist attraction in the sense it's all electric. And it just gets charged right there it's like a cell phone, a huge, humongous cell phone site where you just park the car right over the trolley right over the charging
It's
thing.
very similar to that.
It's wireless.
We have a brand new project that went into effect this summer. That one of the trolleys we've converted to all electric, zero emissions, that uses wireless inductive charging. Not getting too technical, but it's like you say, it's like charging a cell phone through the air, except for a trolley. And that has reduced our operating costs by 45%, and we're not burning diesel fuel, helping to reduce emissions and keeping our scenic Monterey Bay Marine Sanctuary clean, which is good for tourism, good for our tourists. And
what are we going to do both? I mean, I think the struggle is we get caught in traffic and look around, and I'm by myself driving my truck. I look around and everybody else is by themselves driving their SUV, truck, or whatever. Right. What's going to get people, particularly those who commute, and I don't do that every day, but if I was doing that same route every day, what is really going to get people, what have other communities done to get them out of their sort of single vehicle into a rapid transit commute?
We've been experimenting with bus rapid transit in the Monterey community with the implementation of our Jazz bus rapid transit, and we're working together with our neighbors to the north in Santa Cruz County, looking at ways to improve transportation service along Highway 1 corridor, reducing traffic congestion, working with TAMC to look at bus on shoulder, where we actually operate the buses on the shoulder of the roads, and this is being done in a dozen other states around the country, and California has been a little late in adopting this technology, but Santa Cruz Metro and MST have worked together to get some legislation passed that will allow us to be a demonstration.
So we might be the first in the state to be able to use the
shoulder of the road
right away and Soldier to put a dedicated bus lane in.
That is correct. Well,
that'd be phenomenal.
MST and Santa Cruz Metro have been taking the lead on that, and we're partnering with our local planning agencies. Debbie's can speak a little bit more about that, and her desire to see traffic congestion relief along the Highway 1 corridor and elsewhere, and working with the transit operators to help make that happen.
I've seen that in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where they have just a network, almost it's like a above ground subway, only it's buses, but it's dedicated not just on the right away. They've got their own lanes and own places, and they go up and down and they can go underground and above ground. It's just like a web. It's phenomenal. And the other one I just saw last week when I was in Colombia, South America, in Bogota, where they have this big long valley and just sprawled everywhere, and they have this dedicated bus line that goes really rapid, really people get on and off very fast, just like a subway. And I know you've been trying to get some money to do these innovative things. You're also trying to bring back the train. You want to explain a little bit what that whole idea is about?
Sure. Well, there's a couple of different trains we're working on. TAMC bought the rail line between Castroville and Monterey, and we did a number of studies to look at bringing back some kind of service, whether it be light rail or maybe some kind of bus rapid transit service, maybe even some intercity rail service on the corridor. And really, a light rail would be ideal, but it's pretty expensive. So we'd love to partner with Carl and MST and see whether some kind of a rapid bus line could take place in that corridor.
Well, explain how that would work.
Well, the concept that could happen would be, let's say you're going on, the buses are coming along from the north and they're going on the Highway 1 corridor, maybe they stop in Marina, and then maybe they take off on the branch line there and run straight past all the traffic on Highway 1 and go into downtown Monterey. That corridor there, it would be tremendously expensive and difficult to widen. But if you use the existing rail corridor there,
because you wouldn't need it any more wider than a rail track.
Right, and in fact, you probably wouldn't need the whole corridor, and in fact, you would be able to preserve the recreational trail, which is also an alternative commute corridor for people biking. So it could be a busway with trail corridor.
Absolutely, and MST's done some preliminary studies of this, and we could actually do this with just one lane. And in Monterey today, we really only have one-way traffic. So in the mornings, traffic's moving from the north to the south along Highway 1. A bus would get on the trail heading south on the bus line, and you'd still have room for the bikes and pedestrian access. And then it would return along Highway 1 going the opposite direction, just using the normal lanes of traffic, because those generally aren't congested. In the evening, we'd reverse direction, and we'd use the trail heading north from Monterey and then returning in the southerly direction on Highway 1. So we can do it very economically and efficiently at much less cost than rail, so that we can incrementally improve, but it would preserve the corridor for future rail use. So doing one doesn't preclude us from doing the other, and we can still maintain the pedestrian access, the bicycle access, and once people see the buses moving through traffic more quickly than cars, we think the buses will become more attractive.
They will. They will.
And
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm just sort of I don't do all the studies and look at all the numbers, but my life of experience of just seeing traffic grow exponentially. There's no really one explanation. I mean, we try to tackle it by how many houses we build and where we build and all those things, but it seems that no matter what, traffic gets bigger. Right. But it is really can be categorized, because the traffic that is a commute traffic really is that. Tourists are usually not up at that hour of the morning trying to get somewhere else. So we really can sort of specify that this is what our locals need to get from where they live to where they work, and there's certain corridors, Highway 1, both in Santa Cruz and Monterey, are just jam-packed going, well, Santa Cruz more in both directions because people going over the hill. But and then Highway 68, and so we can prioritize those. But the rest is sort of this tourism too, because now I'm experiencing the Highway 1 Big Sur, and people are getting very angry about it promoting tourism. Why do we tell everybody to come here when this road gets so damn jammed? You got to drive the highway. Well, the tourists like to see it at 10 miles an hour. The locals like to see it at 60 miles an hour. That's impossible on that road. But there's commuters to serve the hotels in Big Sur and the restaurants and so on. So I really kind of empathize with the struggles that you're having to get the money, because we in Congress haven't done anything. I mean, here we have as the Secretary of Transportation told you and me this morning, is that this is the same size cup for transportation that we've had for years, full of money, and it hasn't gotten any bigger. And so you get the same amount of money, and you've got a lot of other demands on that money and costs on that money. And we really need to increase, at the federal level, transit taxes. But in this country, and particularly in California, we allow local governments. I mean, how serious? I think at the commute hours, we're at gridlock.
Right.
So it can only get worse. We do nothing. There's no easy way to do this. So it's going to take some money, and are the formulas that we have at the federal level and the state level. If you have your own money, sort of what we call self-help. The counties go out and do it, or the city goes out and raises some fee or tax, and then goes to the state, federal government, doesn't that raise you up in the waiting line to get you to the front of the line? And we don't have that.
It does. And so in Monterey County, TAMC's actually taking the lead in trying to become a self-help county for all modes of transportation. We're looking towards the November 2016 ballot. And one of the big selling points is the fact that we know that if we bring our own dollars to the table, that we can leverage that and get state matching funds. And in certain cases, federal matching funds. The busway that Carl and I have been talking about would get probably a one-to-one match. If we were able to come up with half of the money, federal government would probably give us the other half.
Well, hasn't Santa Cruz raised a half-cent sales tax just dedicated to their bus line?
Yes, they do.
But they don't have any more money dedicated to the road system, just to buses.
That is correct.
Right.
And we don't have either.
Right, and
Monterey
Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, and San Benito County are looking into the possibilities of becoming self-help counties in this next election cycle, precisely so that we can have some more local control over the transportation improvements for the residents and for the visitors.
What are other counties in California that are maybe our size that have done that what we call they've taxed themselves to help?
I would say Napa and
Santa Barbara?
Sonoma, Madera.
Santa Barbara.
Madera County, I believe.
Madera County as well. Marin County as well.
So there are a great number of rural and tourism-related counties that have already taxed themselves.
And how much should they tax? Is it usually a cent or is
Standard is about 0.5% per dollar. We're looking at 3/8 of a cent because Carl already got 1/8 of a cent.
Yeah, so
last
we were
election.
successful last November in Monterey County in getting a special election and a sales tax just for Monterey Salinas Transit's services for elderly, disabled, and veterans members of the community. So that's raising $7 million a year for those programs.
for a 1/4 cent sales tax?
1/8 of a cent.
1/8 of a cent.
And that is supporting these very special programs that we had been dependent on federal funding for, but as you said, the cup hasn't gotten any bigger, and in some places the funds have been redistributed. And so MST saw that we were going to be losing funding to support our elderly, disabled, and veterans programs. And so we were able to pass a very small, very specific tax in Monterey County last November. And that is helping us at the state level, as you had mentioned, because we have this local money coming in. The state of California recognizes that and actually provides a little extra funding to us through a different formula that will help raise the rest of our transit services to the community.
Well, I've always believed that we get elected to make tough decisions. And one of those tough decisions is always the question of taxes. Politicians in both Sacramento at the state level and here in Washington at the federal level have been haven't had the guts. I mean, I'm willing to spell it out and it makes reasonable sense and we'll do it.
Right.
And we need to do it because countries that we're competing with now for educational purposes and jobs and infrastructure, I mean, businesses want to come where they can get around. And I think it's part of our national security, part of our national economic plan. There's no reason why we ought not to find additional revenues to pay for our infrastructure. So I'm for it.
Yeah.
Since we're not doing it, and it has been done in other counties our size, I mean, it's kind of down to the wire that if we don't pass these things, we can't just pass it in one county and have all the traffic stuck in Santa Cruz County or stuck in San Benito County. So we really need to think regionally on this.
And I think the Monterey County Hospitality Association and the agricultural interest as well see the importance of this and have been working together with TAMC.
Well, that's that in and out economy. I mean, both
Correct.
of them depend. The hospitality industry depends on tourism getting in, and agriculture depends on produce getting out, right. And they have to get in and out on the same road.
And the fewer vehicles that we have on the roads, the more quickly we can get our tourists in, so they have a nice experience, and not they can spend their time in Monterey or in Big Sur or in one of the tasting rooms rather than spending their time in traffic.
Well, you have a route that goes to Big Sur, really for the tourists, right? And for locals, does any of the workers in the, I don't know, your hours are essentially good for the commute traffic, but they're certainly good for tourists.
We have the Line 22 Big Sur service that does serve primarily tourists, but some of the residents who live in Big Sur also take advantage of that.
Where do you catch it?
You can catch it in downtown Monterey at our transit plaza at the Del Monte Center in Monterey, and it will take you all the way through to through downtown Carmel by the Sea and through to all the way down to Nepenthe. And that runs daily during the summer and then weekend-only services during the wintertime. Another tourist service.
Can you put bicycles on it?
You can. We have our now expanding our bicycle services now to where we'll take up to 3 bicycles on the rack, and then up to the driver's discretion. If there's room available on the bus, you may be able to take your bike on the bus as well. But it depends on how many people are actually. If there are no seats available, the driver may not.
I'm curious. Do you do any interpretation, sort of a tour? I mean, I think riding the buses, which I would love to have, is even a kind of an automatic thing.
I bet your drivers talk about
No, actually,
we
we have some technology on board our buses. It's called a voice enunciation system. And on our MST Trolley, we actually do points of interest, and we're working on some voiceover right now, maybe for next season, to have points of interest along the Big Sur Express pointed out. So where you have the lighthouse and the Bixby Bridge, and you can have a 10 or 15 second description. We don't necessarily want to have a long monologue for the drivers and for the passengers to listen to, but I think little interesting facts, trivia about what's going on along the route, what you're seeing. We did that with our Pacific Grove trolley that we ran in the past as well. So we do have that technology in place. And then we also have our Grapevine Express service that runs from downtown Monterey through Carmel by the Sea and then out through the Carmel Valley that stops at over a dozen tasting rooms that helps our tourists who are visiting supporting our more agricultural tourism in the wine tasting rooms.
Now, Carl's talking about some interesting examples of how transportation becomes the tourism experience. Right. And I know, Congressman, you've been very supportive of bicycle trails, and bicycling is a huge industry in the region. One of the exciting things that we would love to be able to help support, if we are able to get this self-help status and new revenues, is a better bicycle link between the coast and the new Fort Ord National Monument. There's a couple of Cal State Monterey Bay professors who have been talking with landowners and cities and the county about planning, they call it the Fort Ord Recreational Trail and Greenway, that would provide a figure-8 loop that would link the university with the monument, and then you could take it along the Salinas River, and then you could loop back then to the recreational trail, the Monterey Bay Sanctuary Scenic Trail, go down to Seaside, and so that would use transportation to create a tourism experience. So I hope we get the chance to use
Debbie, you know what
I
love about you? You don't just talk about bicycle transportation, you use it. And many times I've seen you pedaling along and then getting out of your helmet and everything, going to work. You sort of demonstrate that not just you put your bicycle where your mouth is, but
our hotel actually offers that we're staying in here to visit offers bicycles to ride, and Debbie and I were considering riding bikes over to this meeting today, but we weren't quite dressed for it.
Well, you can do wonderful tours of Washington D.C. on bicycles.
Absolutely.
So I think what. I love this idea that we really start thinking the big transportation picture, because we all complain about congestion, traffic congestion, but we also don't know that we've become one of the megas for trail bikes and stuff. And we have industry in our area, in Gilroy and Monterey and Salinas, that I think is over $1 billion in making parts for bicycles and selling those things. And we have huge, successful, world-renowned bicycles coming out of our area. Nicene Marks has turned that huge 10,000-acre state park into a trail bike attraction. We have the Sea Otter Classic in the springtime in Fort Ord, which is the largest sort of festival of off-road bicycling in the nation. So I think if we really improve these trails, it's going to help our economics, because those bicycle riders also have to stay in hotels and eat in restaurants and buy things. And let me just, we're going to close here, but just sort of sum it up. In the future, do you think things are going to get better? I mean, obviously this is your job, but...
I think things will get better. You know, we've done some tremendous safety improvements with funding that you helped get, but I would like them to happen faster than they're happening right now.
Well, passing this tax you're going to put on the ballot will help them do it faster.
It will help do it faster.
And there is no one silver bullet. The tax will help. MST's tax will help, but we need a strong federal commitment and a strong state commitment, and I think it's inevitable for it to get better. If you look at the millennial generation, the generation that's behind me and behind Debbie, the up and coming, they are the future, and studies have shown they're not interested in owning or operating personal vehicles. They want to use alternatives. They want to use transit. They want to ride buses. They want to ride trains, use bicycles. They want to do Uber. They want to use taxis.
Well, let's do it all. Let's do it all.
And that's what we're hoping to do, to have an integrated mobility system in Monterey, in Santa Cruz, throughout the region, throughout the state and federal areas, federal government, and we can make that happen.
Well, I want to thank you both. This has been a delightful half hour of just sort of discussing the myriad of transportation alternatives we have and hope for the future. I really hope that you, the viewer, will engage in the thought about this and at least keep an open mind on how we might raise some additional revenue to help support these systems and build them. It's in your best interest that we have a smooth operating transportation systems, or else we're all going to be stuck. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you for inviting us.
Learn more about Sam Farr's work in Congress, or share your views at farr.house.gov, or follow him on Facebook or Twitter.